Shalom Malachim. Welcome back to the broadcast. Peace be upon you. I'm Sean, the host. Website is www.scriptureandprophecy.com. Today we are doing our Torah portion for the week. This week it is called Noach, which means Noah. And this reading is the second reading from the book of Genesis. It's named after Noah. And the Hebrew name Noah is spelled Nun Het, and the word Noach is related to the word for rest. And Genesis 5:29 says that his parents named him Noach because they hoped their son would give them rest from their toil. And so the contents of the section of Noah tell the story of Noah's flood, the Tower of Babel, and the beginning of the Abrahamic line. And so that's what we're going to be covering today. And so we're going to be reading starting with Genesis chapter 6, verse 9. And it goes all the way through chapter 11, verse 32. So a lot to cover this morning. And again, I will give some commentary, but not a lot, because we've just got a lot to read. And the tradition is to just read it, and the people hear it, and God will speak to you through it. Now, I will be using the HalleluYah scriptures, as is the tradition that I'm starting with the Torah-Portion. And it uses a lot of Hebraic words, and while I'm not a big sacred namer type of guy, I do think it's beneficial for people who are trying to learn Hebrew, and it just kind of lets us change things up a little bit, because we use the King James Bible for all of our other studies. Last thing I'll note, and then we'll get started, the new biblical modern Hebrew video for those trying to learn Hebrew is up at the Patreon page. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, you should see that in the feed, and you can go there and check it out. If you're a supporter of the podcast through the post office box or PayPal and you're wanting access to that link, send me an email and I'll send you a link. There's currently 5 videos available in that series, and we'll be releasing one each month. All right. Noach is the Torah portion for today. Let's begin. We're going to look at, starting with chapter 6, verse 9. Let's begin. Verse 9, HalleluYah scriptures. This is the genealogy of Noach. Noach was a righteous man, perfect in his generation. Noach walked with Elohim, and Noach brought forth 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the earth was corrupt before Elohim, and the earth was filled with violence. And Elohim looked upon the earth and saw that it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And Elohim said to Noach, The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And see, I am going to destroy them from the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and outside with tar. And this is how you are to make it. The length of the ark is 300 amah, its width 50 amah, and its height 30 amah. Make a window for the ark and complete it to an amah from above, and put the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. And see, I myself am bringing flood waters on the earth to destroy all flesh, in which the breath of life from under the Shemayim, all that is on the earth, is to die. Okay, I do want to bring just one point. It started off, verse 9, Noach was a righteous man, and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with Elohim. And depending on whose commentary you're looking at or who you're listening to, you're going to get all kinds of different views of what that means. Some people mean it just simply means what it means, that he was a righteous man, and he was perfect in his generation. Not a perfect person, per se. Matter of fact, I have an art scroll Tanakh that says that he was perfect in his generation, and perfect in his generation meaning compared to the rest of the world, he was extremely righteous, but did not say that he was perfectly righteous. Some look at that and think that it means that he was just perfect genetically. because we had the Nephilim, we had, the giants on the earth in those days, and there was a lot of genetic corruption, much like what we see today. And so there's that thought that I'll let you ponder on. Let's continue, verse 18. And I shall establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your son's wife with you. And of all the living creatures of the flesh, to each you are to bring into the ark, to keep them alive with you, a male and a female. Of the birds after their kind, and of the cattle after their kind, and of the creeping creatures of the earth after their kind, 2 of each are to come to you, to keep them alive. As for you, take of all food that is eaten, and gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. And Noach did according to all that Elohim commanded him, so he did. Chapter 7. And Yehovah said to Noach, Come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Of all the clean beasts take with you 7 pairs, a male and his female. And of the beasts that are unclean 2, a male and its female. And of the birds of the Shemayim 7 pairs, males and female, to keep offspring alive on the face of all the earth. All right, let me do one more pause here. I'm going to try not to do this too much, but we always see that picture. It's 2 by 2, just 2 of each animal. That's not what the scripture says. He says, of all the clean beasts, take with you 7 pairs, male and his female, and of the beasts that are unclean, 2, a male and its female. So, just a heads up on that. For after 7 more days I am sending rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights, and shall wipe from the face of the earth all that stand that I created. And Noach did according to that Yehovah commanded him. Now Noach was 600 years old when the flood waters were on the earth. And Noach and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Of the clean beast and of the beasts that are unclean, and of birds and all that creep on the earth, 2 by 2 they went into the ark to Noach, male and female, as Elohim had commanded Noach. And it came to be after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. In the 600th year of Noach's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of the Shemayim were opened. And the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And on that same day Noach and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noach, and Noach's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them, went into the ark. They and every living creature after its kind, and every beast after its kind, and every creeping creature that creeps on the earth after its kind, and every bird after its kind, every bird of every sort. And they went into the ark to Noach, 2 by 2, of all flesh, in which is the breath of life. In those days going in, male and female of all flesh went in as Elohim had commanded him, and Yehovah shut him in. And the flood was on the earth 40 days, and the waters increased and lifted up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. And the waters were mighty and greatly increased on the earth, and the ark moved about on the surface of the water. And the waters were exceedingly mighty on the earth, and all the high mountains under the Shemayim were covered. The waters became mighty, 15 amah upward, and the mountains were covered. And all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds and the cattle and the beast and every creeping creature that creeps on the earth, and all mankind. All in whose nostrils was the breath of the spirit of life, and all that was on dry land died. So he wiped off all that stand which were on the face of the ground, both man and beast, creeping creature and bird of the Shemayim. And they were wiped off from the earth, and only Noach was left, and those with him in the ark. And the waters were mighty on the earth 150 days. Chapter 8. And Elohim remembered Noach, and all the beasts and all the cattle that were with him in the ark, and Elohim made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters subsided. And the fountains of the deep and the windows of the Shemayim were stopped, and the rain from the Shemayim was withheld. And the waters receded steadily from the earth, and at the end of 150 days the waters diminished. And in the 7th month, the 17th day of the month, the ark rested on the mountains of Arat. And the waters decreased steadily until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, the tops of the mountains became visible. And it came to be at the end of 40 days that Noach opened the window of the ark which he had made. And he sent out a raven which kept going out and turning back until the waters had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove from him to see if the waters had receded from the face of the ground. But the dove found no resting place for its feet and returned to the ark to him, for the waters on the face of all the earth. So he put out his hands and he took it in and pulled it into the ark to himself. And he waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent the dove out from the ark. And the dove came to him in the evening, and see, a freshly plucked olive leaf was in its mouth. And Noah knew that the waters had receded from the earth, and he waited yet another 7 days, and sent out the dove, which did not return to him again. And it came to be in 601st year, in the 1st month, the 1st day of the month, that the waters were dried up from the earth. And Noach removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and saw the surface of the ground was dry. And in the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. And Elohim spoke to Noach, saying, Go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons wives with you. Bring out with you every living creature of all flesh that is with you, of birds, of cattle, all creeping creatures that creep on the earth, and let them teem on the earth, and bear and increase on the earth. So Noach went out, his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping creature, every bird, whatever creeps on the earth according to their kinds, went out of the ark. And Noach built an altar to Jehovah, and took every clean beast and of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And Jehovah smelled a soothing fragrance, and Jehovah said in his heart, Never again shall I curse the ground because of man, although the inclination of man's heart is evil from his youth, and never again smite all life as I have done. As long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest and cold and heat, and winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease. Chapter 9. And Elohim barak, that means to bless, and Elohim barak Noach and his sons, and he said to them, Bear fruit and increase and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you is on every beast of the earth, and every bird of the Shemayim, on all that creeps on the ground, and on all fish of the sea. Into your hands they have been given. Every moving creature that lives is food for you. I have given you all as the green plants. But do not eat flesh with its life, its blood. But only your blood for your lives I require. From the hand of every beast I require it, and from the hand of man. From the hand of every man's brother I require the life of man. Whosoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood is shed. From the image of Elohim he has made man. As for you, bear fruit and increase. Bring forth teemingly in the earth, and increase in it. And Elohim spoke to Noach and his sons with him, saying, And I see, I establish my covenant with you and your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the birds, of the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, of all that go out to the ark, every beast of the earth. And I shall establish my covenant with you, and never again is all flesh cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again is there a flood to destroy the earth. And Elohim said, This is the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you, and every living creature that is with you for all generations to come. I shall put my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. And it shall be, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud. And I shall remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and never again let the waters become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the rainbow shall be in the cloud, and I shall see it, to remember the everlasting covenant between Elohim and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And Elohim said to Noach, "This is the sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth." And the sons of Noach, who went out of the ark, were Shem, and Ham, and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noach, and all the earth was overspread from them. And Noach, a man of the soil, began and planted a vineyard. And he drank the wine and was drunk, and became uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father. And he told his two brothers outside. So Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it on both their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father, but their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. And Noach awoke from his wine, and he knew what his younger son had done to him. And he said, "Cursed is Canaan, let him become a servant of servants to his brothers." And he said, "Barak be Yehovah, the Elohim of Shem, and let Canaan become his servant. Let Elohim enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan become his servant." And Noach lived after the flood 350 years. So all the days of Noach were 950 years, and he died. Now, before I move on to chapter 10, I just want to note that I'm not going to cover it today or talk about it today, but this issue of Noah and his nakedness, I give some interesting perspectives that some people may have in the Genesis study. So you can go to the website and find the Genesis study, or you just go to the YouTube channel and type in Genesis, and you'll see, because last year we did the whole book of Genesis and the book of Exodus. So you can see some more commentary on that if you so desire to. Just letting you know that that's available. Let's continue. We're ready for chapter 10. And this is the genealogy of the sons of Noach, Shem and Ham, and Japheth, and the sons were born to them after the flood. And the sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Yawan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Taras. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah, and the sons of Yawan. And the sons of Yawan, Elisha, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. From these, the coastland peoples of the nations were separated into their lands, everyone according to his language, according to their clans, and into their nations. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Sabta, and Ramah, and Sebtika. And the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush brought forth Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one on the earth. All right. I want to hold up a little bit on Nimrod. You know, before we get started, Nimrod to me, when I look at the scriptures, is sort of like the Antichrist figure. And some people believe that when it says that he became a mighty one on the earth, that it's also talking about kind of like not just that he was mighty and that he was a mighty hunter and that he was basically a world ruler, which is what he became. Really, the whole Noah story is kind of like an end times foreshadow. But some people speculate that maybe this mighty one is also referring to kind of like the Nephilim, that he became like a Nephilim. And we're definitely going to be seeing that in our day, in our generation, let me tell you, with all the genetic modification that we have, and AI and chips and all that stuff. So, just sharing that with you. Verse 9. He was a mighty hunter before Yehovah. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yehovah. And the beginning of his reign was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Kelna, in the land of Shinar. From that land he went to Asher and built Nineveh, and Rehoboth, and Calach, and Resen between Nineveh and Calach, the great city. And Mizraim brought forth Ludim, and Anaman, and Lahaban, and Naphtuhim, and Pathrasim, and Kulachim, from whom came the Pelishites and the Kephtorim. And Canaan brought forth Sidon, the firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the Girgashite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arwadite, and the Tesmarite, and the Chamalathite. And afterward the clans of the Canaanites were spread abroad. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as you go toward Gerar, as far as Azoth, as you go toward Sidom, and Amorah, and Adamah, and Sesboim, as far as Lashah. These were the sons of Ham, according to their clans, according to their languages, in their lands, and in their nations. And also to Shem, the father of all children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, and the elder, brought forth the sons of Shem, Elam, and Asher, and Arpachshad, and Lud, and Aram, and the sons of Aram, Yutz, and Hul, and Gether, and Mash. And Arpachshad brought forth Shelah, and Shelah brought forth Eber. And Eber bore 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg. For in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Yoktan. And Yoktan brought forth Almodad, and Sheleph, and Hatzporeth, and Yera, and Hardaram, and Azul, and Diklah, and Obal, and Abnormal, and Sheba, and Ophir, and Hawilah, and Yobab. All these were the sons of Yoktan. And their dwelling place was from Mesha, as you go toward Sephar, a mountain of the east. These were the sons of Shem, according to their clans, according to their languages, in their lands, according to their nations. These were the clans of the sons of Noach, according to their generations, in their nations. And from these the nations were divided on the earth after the flood. Chapter 11. And it came to be, all the earth had one language and one speech. Now I want to hold up for just a second and just say that what's about to be described, I think, is what is happening once again. I just said that this time period, to me, is a foreshadow of the end of days again. Just like it was the end of days then. You had the Nephilim on the earth, you had corruption and wickedness, and God destroys the earth. And then you kind of have this and I granted the order may be a little off, but it's still kind of like a foreshadow. And then you have this society that develops on the earth. You have like a one world earth, a united earth, everybody's speaking the same language, all that stuff. We're having that again, where language is no longer an issue and communication is no longer an issue. We have the internet and translation tools and all of that. So language is no longer a barrier for mankind once again. And once again, mankind is thinking of itself as God. As little gods, I guess. And then you have some believe that the scriptures indicate that in the last days you'll have one rise up to unite the whole world. And so, what we're about to read, just be thinking about maybe the times you're living in now could be very similar to this. Alright, let me continue. We're reading 32 verses here in chapter 11, and then we'll be done for our Torah portion this morning. Verse 1 again. And it came to be, all the earth had one language and one speech, and it came to be, as they departed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to each other, Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the Shemayim, and make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over all the face of the earth. Then Yehovah came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And Yehovah said, Look, they are one people, and they all have one language, and this is what they begin to do. And now they are not going to be withheld from doing whatever they plan to do. Come, let us go there and confuse their language so that they do not understand one another's speech. And Yehovah scattered them from there over the face of the earth, and they ceased building the city. This is why the name was called Babel, because there Yehovah confused the language of all the earth, and from there Yehovah scattered them over the faces of all the earth. I should also say that I believe that all these languages we are speaking today, and that they were created by God, even the one I'm speaking now. And because God had to confuse all the languages. Why? Because they had united as one people with evil intent, as we see in our days today. Verse 10, this is the genealogy of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and brought forth Arpachshad 2 years after the flood. And after he brought forth Arpachshad, Shem lived 500 years, and he brought forth sons and daughters. And Arpachshad lived 35 years, and brought forth Shelah. And after he brought forth Shelah, Arpachshad lived 403 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. And Shelah lived 30 years, and brought forth Eber. And after he brought forth Eber, Shelah lived 403 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. And Eber lived 34 years, and brought forth Peleg. And after he brought forth Peleg, Eber lived 430 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years, and brought forth Reu. And after he brought forth Reu, Peleg lived 209 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. And Reu lived 32 years, and brought forth Serug. And after he brought forth Serug, Reu lived 207 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. And Serug lived 30 years, and brought forth Nahor. And after he brought forth Nahor, Serug lived 200 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. And Nahor lived 29 years, and brought forth Terah. And after he brought forth Terah, Nahor lived 119 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years, and brought forth Abram, of Nahor and Haran. And this is the genealogy of Terah. Terah brought forth Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran brought forth Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his birth in Ur-Kasdim. And Abram and Nor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai. The name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, and the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Yishach. And Sarah was barren, and she had no child. And Terah took a son, Abram, and his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarah, and his son Abram's wife. And they went out with them from Ur-Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan. And there came to Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah came to be 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. That is the end of chapter 11 and our study in the Torah today. And so it begins with the flood of Noah and all of that drama. And then in the middle you've got, basically a lot of genealogy, but then you've got Nimrod and Tower of Babel, and God comes down and he says, look, they're united in one language and in one evil purpose. And if we don't do something about it, there'll be nothing to stop them from accomplishing the evil that they want to accomplish. So God scatters them and scatters their languages. And then, of course, we have the first mention of Abram, son of Terah. And that is how the Torah portion ends this week. And I pray that it's been a blessing to you and that you're enjoying this, and that it's to you worth me getting up early on Saturday morning to produce this podcast for you. And I pray that you're being blessed in the name of Jesus. Interesting enough, I mentioned this last week, I was feeling tired and overwhelmed, and my plan was to reduce the amount of podcasting I was doing, only to end up doing 4 podcasts and creating a video for the Patreon page this week. So, God is good and merciful and kind and long-suffering. Praise the Lord Jesus Christ. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam. We are so blessed, and I'm very grateful to be able to do this podcast. And just so you know, I'm on a live radio show tomorrow night from 9 to 10, and I'm hoping I'll get the audio clip that I'll be able to share with you next week. So, there you have it. 2 weeks running, we've managed to do not only our Torah portion, but our gospel portion and our prophets portion for the week. And may God continue to have mercy on me and mercy on this podcast. Thank you for those who support it and pray for it. Couldn't do it without you, and I'm very, very grateful for you. Peace and grace be with all of you, and until next time, God bless.